You know, the Bedouins have difficulty trying to figure out why I'm not married, because the idea of a single woman is not something that is very common to them. So when I first came here, I said, well, in order to get married, I have to have at least 1,000 camels, 500 dark ones and 500 abuyad. Then I might consider it. Well, of course, nobody has 1,000 camels in Jordan, so I figured that would never happen. Then Suleiman Sabah comes to me one day. He says, Erga, you know, I have to talk to you. I said, what? He said, my grandfather is asking me about you. His grandfather, I'm 70, his grandfather is about 75 or 76. He wants to know why you're not, you know, if you're married or not. I said, look, Suleiman, you tell your grandfather what I told you. It's got to be 1,000 camels. He comes back a week later. He says, well, my grandfather has 500. Of course, I never did the scenario. I never did the ending to the story. And I said, well, Suleiman, look. He has 500, and he's going to have to get another 500. And what about the food? You know what? Forget it. My first husband died. The second husband died. And let's just leave it that way. I just don't want to get married anymore. So he goes back to his grandfather, comes back after 2 weeks and says, Erga, I told my grandfather. And you know what he said? I said, no, what did he say? He said, if the first husband died and the second husband died, he said, I don't want to be the third. And that was the end of it. So that's how I figured out my story. If anybody asks me why I'm not married, I killed 2 husbands, so there's no reason to do it anymore. I think it's great.
Erga came here like any other tourist who had heard of Wadi Rum and the Bedouins. She took things at a leisurely pace because she wanted to see as much as possible. Right from the start, she wanted to be taken to the Bedouins, where she received the usual hospitality we show our guests. We took her to visit a group of friendly Bedouins. She loved the region and wanted to come back. When she did, she got to know the family better, and I took to her. She bought a camel, lived and traveled with them. When her camel died, they gave her another as a gift. She became one of the family. She got to know everyone. She socialized with them, and she began to consider living here. It's now been 7 years since she first came and began to live like a Bedouin. She tried her hand at skills such as baking. She traveled on her own like other Bedouin women. She did everything they did, visiting the sick, attending weddings, funerals, and other social gatherings. She became one of us.
مرحبا مرحبا كيف كنتي؟ كويسة
This is my family. These are my grandchildren. Sitting with me now are 6, and there are, come on, Thanin, huh? 2 more. I'm the old one in the family right now. But this is a very special kind of family because I have a very close relation with these children because we're all living together. And even though it's a different culture with a different language, the similarities of raising children, there are many things that are the same in raising children no matter where you live. You know, there are basic things. Children have to learn to eat, children have to learn to take care of themselves. They have to learn to get dressed, they have to learn what they can do and what they can't do. The difference is that And it's a very big difference as far as I'm concerned, because the Western child is, in many cases, brought up in a base of fear. You know, don't go here, don't go there, don't do this, don't touch that, be quiet, things like that. They don't do that in this culture. Children are allowed to be children, and in being allowed to be children, they have an enjoyment of being a child, I think, for a lot longer time than in the West, because in the West, children are taught to be grown up right away. And here they're allowed to be children and to play as children and to make whatever mistakes that children have to make in order to learn responsibility. They're very special animals because no other animal can live in the desert the way a camel does. And the relationship between man and the camel was very important because they needed each other. And they steal food. When I was in the desert with them, they would watch me where I was putting my food supplies. And you had to find a place that was high enough for the camel not to reach. Otherwise, they would come at night and they would remember where I put the bag of tomatoes or anything like that, and they would go and they would steal it. They're constantly, perpetually hungry, you know? Well, but they have 3 stomachs, so they have to fill it. But if you take good care of a camel like any other animal, they become your friend. I have to say I have had very good relations with my camels, probably better relations with my camels than I had with a lot of human beings I know. Because they're very clear, you know. I really would feel terrible if it got to the point where this animal was no longer, you know, the Bedouins don't have as many camels as they used to have, like they don't have as many sheep as they used to have because the life is different. I'm sorry, I don't have any more. Here, take. You got it? I will not take anything from you, I promise. See? Bye. One of the wonderful things that Wadi Rum has given to me, because I feel living here has been a great privilege, is the discovery of the camera. Because I never had a camera, I never owned a camera till I started living here 7 years ago. I was a painter, so painting and drawing were my way of expressing. But when I came to Wadi Rum and I saw the absolute awesome beauty of the place, I said, I think I have to start taking pictures. The feeling I have of being very blessed and privileged to have been living here for 7 years is something that is a part of me and will never go away. Having lived with the Fala and his family in the desert the first year I was here, showed me the relation these people have with their land and their animals, which is extremely important to this culture. They are part of an ecosystem, and they are a very important part of the ecosystem. The world around a culture changes, and lifestyles change in cultures from maybe hundreds of years back, but the changes are usually quite slow and will depend on if the climate changes. You have to move, and then the car comes along. About 40 years ago, the Bedouins got the Jeep, and now you have much more modern world around them and much more technological changes. So it saddens me that things have to change. It's not that anyone is against change, it's just what kind of change are we talking about?